Before you begin, if you have not already done so, please view Presentation Document 1, Introducing the Teachwell Toolkit. I suggest you play Document 1 through once without taking notes. Then open Document 2 Manual Presentation, Introducing the Teachwell Toolkit, and run through it, making notes if appropriate. Welcome to this automated presentation, Document 8, Implementing a Culture of Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health using the Teachwell Toolkit. My name is Steve Waters, and I am the founder of the Teachwell Alliance and the creator of the Teachwell Toolkit. This presentation is a step-by-step guide to using the Teachwell Toolkit program. It is deliberately detailed and carefully structured. There is some repetition of information, as each slide has been written so that as far as possible it stands alone and can be understood without reference to other slides. I understand the pressure on you and the teachers in your school, and therefore have designed the Teachwell Toolkit so that the instructions are clear and sequential. For the same reason, the emails to staff explaining the actions you are taking have been written for you. If, however, you wish to modify or adapt any of the documents in Word format, you can do so. There is also a fast-track version of the Teachwell Toolkit program, which is explained in the flowchart in Document 10, step by step through the Teachwell Toolkit. While we believe that the most effective implementation of staff well-being and mental health will result from following the Teachwell Toolkit program in full, in certain circumstances the fast-track version might be more appropriate for your school. This presentation is also available as a manual presentation without voiceover narration in Document 6 and as an audio file only in Document 7. You will also find a copy of this transcript of the voiceover narration in the Teachwell Toolkit Resources folder in Document 8. The presentation will automatically move on to the next slide after my narration stops. As there is detailed information to read on the slides, when I finish speaking, please pause the presentation to read through the slide. When you are ready to move on, press play again. I suggest you play the presentation through once without taking notes. Then open Document 6, Manual Presentation, Implementing a Culture of Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health using the Teachwell Toolkit, and run through it, making notes if appropriate. You can then start to implement the Teachwell Toolkit program in the step-by-step guidance in Document 6, Manual Presentation, Implementing a Culture of Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health using the Teachwell Toolkit. You will need to download Document 9, Whole School Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health Overview, from the Teachwell Toolkit Resources folder in your shared area before continuing to Slide 1. This slide explains why the Teachwell Alliance focuses on whole school staff wellbeing and mental health. A reminder of the purpose of this presentation and where it can be found. Before you pause the presentation to read through this slide, I would like to draw your attention to the final statement. Neither this presentation nor Document 1, Introducing the Teachwell Toolkit, are designed to be displayed to an audience. They are instructional tools. You can modify either of the presentations or select specific slides if you want to focus on a particular aspect of the Teachwell program with staff. The colour coding throughout the Teachwell Toolkit documents is designed to make it easier to read and navigate through them. The Teach Well Toolkit programme is designed to be led by the school wellbeing lead or a member of staff who has oversight of staff wellbeing and mental health. This slide is also a reminder of how to access the Teach Well Toolkit programme documents. Uploading documents to both the Teach Well Toolkit resources folder and Padlet is the responsibility of the school wellbeing lead or the member of staff who has oversight of staff wellbeing and mental health. Before you move on to slide 8, download a copy of document 24, Teach Well Toolkit Reference Manual from the Teach Well Toolkit resources folder. If you wish, you can then look up information in the manual while viewing this presentation. You might also find it helpful to download document 9, Whole School Wellbeing and Mental Health, and document 29, Teach Well Toolkit Overview, from the Teach Well Toolkit resources folder. Now let's take a look at how you will implement the Teach Well Toolkit in Term 1. Slide 10 asks you to use the School Wellbeing iAbacus to identify the issues related to staff wellbeing and mental health and to draw up actions to address them. You will then put the iAbacus on one side until you have explored what burnout is and how you will prevent and tackle it. A definition of burnout. The physical symptoms associated with burnout and the 3 aspects of your professional life that are impacted by them. The more of these symptoms you have, the more likely it is that you are at risk of burnout or are experiencing burnout. Christina Maslach is an expert on occupational burnout. Her view of what causes burnout in an organisation calls into question the DFE's strategy of focusing on workload as a key method of improving retention and recruitment. There are, Maslach believes, 6 factors leading to a mismatch between the individual's values and those of the organisation. Take a look at page 5 in document 9, Whole School Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health Overview. Maslach identifies the 6 factors and explains what each of them means. Your first step in Term 1 is to send the text of document 11, email to staff, requesting completion of Survey 1, rank Maslach's 5 remaining factors causing burnout to staff, and attach document 12, identifying reasons why Maslach's 6 factors cause burnout. As you will have seen, one of Maslach's 6 factors is workload. As this is often mentioned by teachers as a source of stress in surveys, in blogs, on Twitter and in the press, we have identified workload as the first Maslach factor to be tackled. This leaves 5 Maslach factors. The staff will rank these 5 Maslach factors anonymously in a survey. The Maslach factors will then be tackled 2 at a time, in rank order, in each term. Slide 17 explains how staff will complete Survey 1, rank 5 Maslach factors causing burnout. This slide describes the process of combining the actions identified by iAbacus to promote staff wellbeing and mental health with the results of Survey 1. Use document 13, suggested whole school strategies to prevent and tackle the 6 Maslach factors causing burnout, to help you complete pages 1 and 2 of document 14, Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health Action Planning Template. Slide 20 explains how you should save the Term 1 version of the action plan by renaming the file. The action plan should then be sent to staff, who are asked to give their feedback on it in the text of document 15, email to staff, feedback on action plan to tackle workload and the Maslach factor ranked number 1 out of the remaining 5. When you receive feedback from the staff in Survey 2, feedback on action plan to tackle workload and the Maslach factor ranked number 1 out of the remaining 5 on the action plan, you can then make amendments to the action plan if appropriate. When you are happy with the amendments made to the action plan, you can then move on to implementing the actions within the time you have allowed on the action plan, usually 1 term. At an appropriate time, for example halfway through the term or equivalent, monitor progress of your action plan. You can do this by using Monitoring Survey 3, or you could take feedback from an established group within the school, such as middle leaders, or you could set up a cross-school focus group of volunteers. The results of the monitoring should inform actions you will take in Term 2 to address Maslach's factors 2 and 3. You are now moving into the second term of the Teach Well Toolkit programme. Return to the results of the School Wellbeing iAbacus. Update iAbacus, noting any changes since it was last completed. Use the results and document 13, suggested whole school strategies to prevent and tackle the 6 Maslach factors causing burnout, to write an action plan on pages 3 and 4 of document 14, Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health Action Planning Template. As before, change the file name of document 14 and save it in the Teach Well Toolkit Resources folder. Send out the text of document 17 and the action plan to staff. Staff complete Survey 4, feedback on action plan to tackle Maslach factors ranked 2 and 3. You make amendments to pages 3 and 4 of document 14, Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health Planning Template, in the light of staff feedback on the action plan to tackle Maslach factors ranked 2 and 3. Allow a term to address Maslach factors 2 and 3. Continue to address workload and Maslach factor 1 out of 5 which you tackled in term 1. At an appropriate time, for example halfway through the term or equivalent, monitor progress of your action plan. You can do this by using Monitoring Survey 5, or you could take feedback from an established group within the school, such as middle leaders, or you could set up a cross-school focus group of volunteers. The results of the monitoring should inform actions you will take in Term 3 to tackle Maslach factors 4 and 5. You are now moving into the final phase of the Teach Well Toolkit programme as you tackle Maslach factors 4 and 5 in Term 3. As in Terms 1 and 2 or equivalent, return to the results of the School Wellbeing iAbacus. Update iAbacus, noting any changes since it was last completed. Use the results and Document 13, Suggested Whole School Strategies to Prevent and Tackle the 6 Maslach Factors Causing Burnout, to write an action plan on pages 5 and 6 of Document 14, Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health Action Planning Template. As before, change the file name of Document 14 and save it in the Teach Well Toolkit Resources folder. Send out the text of Document 19 and the action plan to staff. Staff complete Survey 6, Feedback on Action Plan to tackle Maslach factors ranked 4 and 5. Results will be sent automatically to the Teach Well Alliance and we will return them to you. You make amendments to pages 5 and 6 of Document 14, Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health Planning Template in the light of staff feedback. Allow a term to address Maslach factors 4 and 5. Continue to address workload and Maslach factor 1 out of the remaining 5 and factors 2 and 3 which you tackled in terms 1 and 2. As you did in the previous 2 Survey 8 will enable you to carry out a final evaluation of the Teach Well Toolkit programme. This is explained in Document 21, Email to Staff. Send out the email to staff. The results of Survey 8 will be sent automatically to the Teach Well Alliance, who will return them to you. Using the results of Survey 8, we suggest that you write a report on the implementation of the Teach Well Toolkit programme. Document 22 provides a template for the report. When written, send it to your staff and governors, together with Document 23, Email to Staff, Report on Implementation of Staff Wellbeing and Mental Health. Your final action is to write a staff wellbeing and mental health policy if your school doesn't have one, or to amend your existing policy to take into account the implementation of the Teach Well Toolkit programme. Document 25 is a sample policy, which includes edited content from the NAS UWT. You can amend it if you wish. Although the focus of the Teach Well Toolkit is on staff, we have suggested some well-being and mental health strategies for pupils on page 7 of Document 9, which is reproduced in Document 26, Pupil Wellbeing and Mental Health Strategies. The book list in Document 27 contains both self-care books and texts which consider whole school well-being and mental health from the teachers' or pupils' perspectives, or both. This graphic from Fit to Communicate describes the kind of school we are aiming to create by implementing the Teachwell Toolkit programme. Submit your final report to the Teachwell Alliance to receive the Gold Award badge for your school. Document 30, List of Documents in the Teachwell Toolkit, is a handy reference document showing the numbers and titles of all the documents in the Teachwell Toolkit Resources folder. When you have viewed this presentation and the presentation in Document 1 introducing the Teachwell Toolkit, please do make an appointment to have a one-to-one 30-minute Zoom video conferencing call with me. I will answer any questions you might have about implementing the Teachwell Toolkit and will offer helpful advice if necessary. We would be delighted to support your school with additional services. Do get in touch with us to discuss how we could help you. That concludes this presentation. We wish you and your school well in implementing the Teachwell Toolkit to create a culture of staff wellbeing and mental health. At an appropriate time, for example halfway through the term or equivalent, monitor progress of your action plan. You can do this by using Monitoring Survey 7, or you could take feedback from an established group within the school, such as middle leaders, or you could set up a cross-school focus group of volunteers. The results of the monitoring should inform whether you are on track to complete the Teachwell Toolkit programme by the end of Term 3.